Thanks, Roger. Iwi katoa ngā mihi kia koutou. I roa rangatira mā, rā, Tiffany, Roger, tēnā koe, I te iwi tōnei, tēnā kau, tēnā rā, tēnā koutou katoa. It's a real pleasure to be here to recognise the key role we have in supporting MPI on biosecurity. And while New Zealand is world best at restoring a lot of biodiversity, and we've got a big job to do, we've had a remarkable season for the number of birds we're bringing back from the brink. It really is about keeping these pests out for this remarkable biodiversity we enjoy in New Zealand. And around about 10 years ago, because the issue is you do need single point accountability, and about 10 years ago the department used to be funded for biosecurity, and that resource was put into MPI at the time. And I just really want to show you that once you get single point accountability in terms of response systems, you can actually make remarkable progress rather than have it split into agencies. So it is about how well MPI and DOC work together for this and the benefits for biodiversity and primary industry.
Welcome to the country of open spaces. Where nature bursts and flows. Where the elements come alive. Where there is room to breathe and places to find. Welcome to the country of open hearts. Where care for the land and people is genuine. Where trust forms lasting partnerships. Where strangers are treated as friends. And memories are treasured forever. Welcome to the country of open minds. Where learning is embraced. And opinions valued. Where nature inspires incredible thinking. Where ingenuity drives design and innovation. Where big ideas are born every day. And new technologies are perfected. Where the impossible becomes real. Where every sunrise inspires the extraordinary. Welcome to the country of open spaces, open hearts, and open minds. Together, we can do amazing things.
So everybody in here is part of protecting that story, and I use this in all my speeches because I think it's such a fantastic story. It's how to differentiate New Zealand to be a price taker rather than a price maker rather than a price taker, and DOC sits at the core of creating that story because we can't sell products, we can't bring tourists in here if our forests are getting destroyed by possums, if our Kauri trees are disappearing through Psittacula, and if our waterways are not clean. So it really is the work that we all do to be part of that story. And in terms of culture, our treaty partner, remember the only thing that was here when Cook came here was Kauri. And really was that as we colonised New Zealand through the European colonisation and brought little Great Britain here, we did so much damage to this country and continue to do so much damage, but we've got the willpower and the power to do it. And really that philosophy of the spiritual dimension of land to our treaty partner is so important to where we're going as a nation. And when we look at Ngāi Tahu, last year distributed $40 million for an iwi of 55,000, and at the rate they're going by 2050, that'll be $500 million. And the number one thing they value is whenua in terms of protecting their rohe and their land against pest, disease, and bringing back some of these special species. So I want to go to 1880, and Kipling wrote this poem, and it was called The Tale of Cities, and this was Auckland, and it was the loneliest, loveliest, exquisite. Now, Kipling visited a time when New Zealand was a very, very special place. Remember, we evolved without any critters with teeth. We've got this, what we call ancient antiquity. The rock wren there is the ancient lineage of all the wrens in the world. Our mohua is the ancient lineage of all the canaries in the world. The tuatara is a living dinosaur, and we've got plants like Mesipteris, which are the most ancient plants on Earth. So all these land bridges broke as Gondwana came, and we were linked up to New Caledonia, and this amazing place came out of the ocean without any mammals, bar a sea lion and a bat. So it was an incredible place. It was a country of birds, and when Kipling was here in Auckland in 1880, the place was teeming with kokako, with kiwi, and then very, very quickly we did so much damage to this country. And through the vision of predator-free New Zealand and predator-free 2050, we believe we can bring it back, and biosecurity sits at the core of that. And I do acknowledge John for getting that kakapo on the cover of that document, because it is about New Zealand's brand that we sell this amazing place off. And we think through this we can actually become the Galapagos of the world. So that's the sort of vision that the Prime Minister outlined when he said every stoat, every rat, every possum by 2050. And we think we can do it. And I do acknowledge Mick Clout, who sits on our Conservation Authority, as well as playing a key role in biosecurity. So our nature is central to our national identity. It's on all our money. We wake up every morning with the bird call. It's on our passport. Our war dead sit under the silver fern. It is really part of what we are as a nation. It underpins our well-being, our prosperity, and there we are at Cape Kidnap as an area that was purchased by Julian Robertson and Andy Lowe, who we've put a predator fence. We're now feeding those birds out into the surrounding pasture, with giving farmers through the Aotearoa Foundation 100 traps each that they can monitor through an iPhone app, and bring those birds out and start connecting up all of Hawke's Bay. We've now got Hawke's Bay by an integrated management, 25,000 hectares at very, very low pest numbers by working together. So we know we can do this. And we've been repositioning DOC under our nature, our exceptional nature. For the 80 million years we evolved in this incredible isolation, but it's our Kiwi nature. It's what we associate when we see the koru on the Air New Zealand plane in Los Angeles that connects us to this country of lakes, mountains, rivers, this incredible place that we really want to position our trade off. And really, this whakatau, if the land is well, the sea is well, and the people will thrive, I really think that's what connects DOC, MFE and MPI in terms of where we want to go as a nation. So our history of introductions is quite sad, and Kauri here were in 800. The Norwegian rat started to come in with Cook. Cook brought in a couple of goats. He left those on Blue Moon Island near Ship Cove. He put some sheep ashore in Dusky Sound. Their teeth were all falling out from scurvy. So rats started to come in with the whaling expeditions through Russell and Dusky Sound. And in 1837 at Riverton, we had our first go at getting possums going, and they died out, so we brought them ashore at Clifton about 10 years later and managed to get them going again, and then Governor Grey gave it a good nudge and got them going up the Hutt Valley. And Governor Grey was so good for New Zealand, we named Greytown after him, the first inland town, where we really tried to get Little Britain going. We brought in foxes and red deer and the whole lot. And so we're giving it a really good go at getting a fur trade going. And then we kept on going on fur, and we had a crack at rabbits, and We got rabbits into Port Chalmers and into Bluff, and they made it all the way through central Otago till we had our first real debate about conservation and the economy. And the farmers at the time said we need to bring in mustelids, stoats, weasels and ferrets. And Governor Gray at the time, leading the government, had this debate between scientists and the farmers about what we're going to do about the exploding rabbit population. Gray's government actually voted not to bring in mustelids, but a bit like RCD, they came anyhow. And so by 1880, this teeming area of birds, at this time we had Charlie Douglas in southwestern could shake a tree and 5 kakapo would fall out of the tutu bush. And his dog Betsy had got so sick of eating kakapo that he had to grill them slightly in the fire before his dog would eat them. So this was the time when Kipling wrote that poem, and within 8 years the forest went quiet. And this is really what we're trying to fix now. But then we look to the other side in our recent introductions, and German wasps came in from crates of aircraft parts from Europe after the Second World War. They came into the Air Force Base near Hamilton, and they quickly started to spread through the country. In the 1960s, a consignment of goldfish was brought in with koi carp, and people released those around the country for coarse fishing. And then the common wasp came in Dunedin in 1983, although we'd already seen queen wasps in 1978 in the Wellington area. So wasps went through the country very, very quickly till we've got the highest wasp densities in the world. We had all that honeydew on beech trees that was our natural environment for them, and we now have this big tension with running tourism through our national parks like Abel Tasman, Nelson Lakes, Canterbury, with this, how do we keep tourists safe against wasps? And I applaud one of my staff, Eric Edwards, who came on the control for fipronil, which we've recently commercialised into Vespex, which we believe we can get wasps under control. Argentine Ants came in 1990, and there were 2 discrete populations. These ants kill baby birds, kill insects, and they're now known from numerous locations in the northern North Island and in the South Island. And last year, the giant willow, or 2014, the giant willow aphid looks like it blew over from Australia, and within 6 months it was widely established over the whole country. So the problem with the giant willow aphid, it brings in another food source for our wasps. So just as we're starting to get wasps under control in our national parks, now all around our lakes, as this giant willow aphid takes over our willows, we're opening up another food source for our wasps. So it just shows you how incredibly dynamic our ecosystem is, but where we find control, we can work really quickly. The other one is deliberate introductions, and I was with Forest Service back in 1975, part of the how do we actually go around the world and bring in all these trees that we can get economic advantage in our high country. And we sent people to Austria, the Himalayas, to bring back all these plants and trees to work out how we could reforest the Mackenzie Basin. This is the Mackenzie Basin today, and we now know 2 of those farms get more out of the carbon credits than they do out of farming, and they get paid. This is the perversity of some of our policy decisions, that you can make more money from carbon offsets than you can farming, which is leading to that huge problem of wilding pines when you look at Mount Cook Station and Pukaki Station. And we were rapt this year that Minister Guy and Minister Barry announced the 16 million of money to get that under control, because that is spreading through our landscapes at around about 50,000 hectares a year. The first population blew out of Hamner in the Wahine storm and started a cartwheel through the Molesworth station. And they take about 6 years to come up to coning, where other winds take them further and further. So it's how we actually get some of these deliberate introductions under control as well. So I'm going to give you several case studies why partnerships are critical. And this is just this is community, iwi, MPI, regional governments working together with a number of case studies to show you some of the damage being done, but really how with science, technology, and a really can-do attitude by New Zealand, and really respecting this magnificent country we have, what we can do. So the first one's the European Alpine Newt, and it was detected in New Zealand in July 2030 on a private property around Waihi. It was imported and released illegally. It was MPI's hotline that let us know that newts were on a property at Waikino at Waihi, and the occupants admitted to bringing the newts in around about 8 years ago. The problem with newts is they've got a fungus that kills our native frogs, and of course that story of ancient antiquity, Archie's frog is the most primitive frog in the world. It communicates through chemical secretion. And so the preferred food of newts is frog eggs, and you can see the damage if we didn't get this under control. So MP and I and Doc quickly worked together. We've captured 3,500 newts in an area of 2 kilometres, and we're getting those numbers down to a really low. We plan a knockdown by 2017 and complete eradication by 2022. But this is why this philosophy of 4.7 million Kiwis being part of this is so important, because little did that person that bought those newts and realise the damage they were going to do to New Zealand. The next one's the Indian ringneck parakeet, and these are legally in New Zealand. You can have them under the pet trade, but we noticed in 2013 at Dock Coromandel that 15 birds had been released and were in flocks around Coromandel. The problem with the parakeet is they spread parrot diseases, and we've got, in this area, we've got the Antipodes parakeet. In the Auckland Zoo, we've got kakapo, we've got red-fronted parakeet, one of the rarest parakeets in the world, orange-fronted parakeets. So really it was working with MPI to change the status of the birds to an unwanted organism in the world, to really tighten up on the pet trade in terms of that, and we believe we're down to the 2 last birds. So when we know these things are out there, we can move quite quickly. Probably the most successful one we've had is the great white butterfly, and it turned up near Nelson Port in May 2010, and we debated what to do about it. At the time the cost looked to be about 20 million. And we quickly saw that as well as the damage it was going to do to the horticultural industry in terms of the brassicas, basically all our alpine plants, we have 79 species of alpine brassicas, ranunculus, malcook lilies, all those. And we saw the threat of those great white butterflies going through all the horticultural crops around Nelson and into our alpine environment and moving through New Zealand. So Doc took a stand that we will actually lead this one. And we put a staff of 34 together, some really innovative stuff here, some great research by guys, Chris Green here in Auckland, and over 4 years and 5 million, and we got no new money from the government. I think MPI put in 300,000 and Vegetable New Zealand has put in 180, and Ag Research $250,000. At the peak, we had 35 staff going door to door looking for eggs and caterpillars. So we visited 30,000 properties, 240,000 individual visits without a single dog bite. And, it's quite when you're going door to door asking to look in somebody's brassicas, you really are putting yourself out on the line there. But look, I really want to... This Michael Shepherd, one of my staff that led the project, and that's a $20 electric butterfly that he got from the horticultural shops for fluttering wings, which was crucial to the success. And the other breakthrough was the $10 butterfly bounty we put on that got so many kids in Nelson out there finding butterflies for the $10. So the innovation's there to do this and to pull this off, and as the Minister announced, we haven't seen a butterfly since November 2014. We think we've pulled that off. That is, as far as we know, the first butterfly eradication done anywhere in the world. So we can do that. We did that for 5 million. The red vented bulbul, Nick Smith was our minister at the same time, and this bird popped up. It's the top 100 of the world's worst invaders. We worked with MPI to have it prohibited as a new organism. The Biosecurity Act, we got it in the Auckland Regional Pest Management Strategy. Minister Smith at the time, because we come up with a $10 bounty, said, well, let's do the same thing in Auckland. And we had visions of young people going around Botanic Gardens, 22s, shooting red vented bulbul. So we said, Minister Smith, I don't know if that's such a good idea, but we introduced a $1,000 bounty to the public that could lead to the light capture of a red vented bulbul. And that worked, and we paid out 4 of those $1,000 bounties, and we think we've got that under control. So the message is early warning, innovation, and a real can-do attitude. We can get on top of this. The real struggle we're having, though, is Kauri Dieback, and it's a moot cause how that came on, whether it's climate change, whether it did really come in tanks to the Athenry nursery after the Korean War, one of the theories, and laid dormant for some time. The thing is, we've only got about 0.5% of our Kauri forest left, and we've got this tragedy of Kauri Dieback through the Psittacula going through the North Island, and sadly getting into Coromandel last year. This has been a real bringing together under MPI's leadership as project lead. The government gave us 21 million new money to do all the tracks, to stop people spreading through tracks. We've got hygiene stations, we've got education, we've got pig control, we've got research, we've got Mataranga Māori, and then we've got this very good governance group to look at how we actually defeat this issue of the loss of our Kauri. And we're feeling optimistic, but we don't have a research cure. We're doing all we can in the research space, but knowing we're going to have to spend a lot of money just making sure good hygiene, and people are not spreading Kauri through their footwear. Another recent one was the rainbow skink. Now the problem with rainbow skink, it first came into Auckland in we think containers in 1960. In 2 years sadly it got to Great Barrier. And Auckland City has been fantastic at trying to get that under control. The problem with these are Australian skinks, and our skinks breed annually. The Australian skinks breed 5 times a year. So you put an Australian species with a New Zealand species and you can see who's going to lose out. Again, we've got it declared as an unwanted organism. We've got it in regional pest management strategies. This is a much harder beast to do than a red fronted bulbul. And particularly when you look at the recent introduction and we've renamed them plague skinks to actually get public. This is to get to the hearts and minds of Kiwi that there's good skinks and bad skinks. And rainbow skink was too good a name to have. And we think, well, let's call it a plague skink so we can get people in behind it. And this is this year, 11th of April this year. We found with MPI the Harlequin Ladybird in Western Springs. The problem is the Harlequin Ladybird, it eats just about everything. Fortunately, it feeds on the giant willow aphid, but it hasn't spread through the country, and we don't want it to spread. It's got a swarming behaviour, it's got a horrible smell. It's a native to Asia, and it's spread worldwide. So this year, we're dealing with new introductions that could impact our primary industries and our biodiversity. The last 2 stories are remarkable New Zealand success stories, and the first is Argentine Ants that were discovered at a wharf at Tiri Matangi in 2000, and through the efforts of Chris Green and the first ever use of a dog to look for ants on Kauri Island. That's a trained sniffer spaniel. We've actually declared the eradication on Tiri Matangi and Kauri Island. This is the only dog in the world we've trained to sniff out Argentine ants, but if we don't, these species will get through the country and start killing baby birds and many of our invertebrates that are so important to us. So it shows you can do it, and you know, you get people like Chris Green who actually, that single-minded focus, I can actually do this. You've got to believe you can do it to do it. The other one was Undaria, and I was part of a budget bid to Bill Birch, who I had to explain what Undaria was, and sadly Undaria came into New Zealand in 1987, and one of our best marine scientists at Wendy Nelson told the government that Undaria has arrived in Wellington Harbour, and sadly at that stage nobody listened to her. So within 10 years Undaria had spread right the way through the east coast of the South Island. It was in Bluff, and then we noticed it on Stewart Island, which is when we went to the government and said we've got to keep Undaria out of Stewart Island because it had taken over Power Beds, Throngaroo. If you've got a yacht in a marina in any of those east coast ports or Bluff, you know the problem of Undaria. You just pull it out, and salmon farms have had to deal with it. We've just declared an eradication in Fiordland through work we've done with Environment Southland and our own staff through diving teams for 5 years. We know we can eradicate it. The last place we want to see it is in Fiordland, and we're having to do a lot more biosecurity controls for the sub-Antarctic and Fiordland to keep Undaria out of Fiordland. But sadly in 1989 nobody listened to Wendy Nelson, and we have this big issue of Undaria now through all our marine environments. That, as far as I know, the first eradication done of a seaweed anywhere in the world. So koi carp, illegally released in and around Nelson in 2000. Again, using the Biosecurity Act, we had them registered unwanted organisms, and these are being brought in for fishing. We believe we've achieved eradication in Nelson, largely because we got together with Fish and Game Council, local government, and worked out a plan. We've still got the issue of range creep in the North Island. We still haven't nailed it up here. And most of the range expansion in the North Island is as a result of deliberate movements by people. So that's why this strategy is so important to us. And lastly, our work with island biosecurity, and this is where McLeod has been a world leader. And let's think, on our islands, we'd never taken a rat off island until 1989 when we tried Brassicae Island. And in the space of 14 years, we went to 2,000 to 10,000 hectares on Campbell Island, and now world leaders at eradication. There's hardly an eradication done anywhere in the world without a New Zealand helicopter pilot or an ex-doc staff. In the Gulf here, we've got 50 islands, 30 islands which are pest-free. Part of our strategy is to get really alongside Auckland City and start getting Aucklanders to understand this huge asset they've got right here in the Gulf and how we keep those rats and rodents and mustelids off this magnificent islands. And no other city in the world has got so many endangered species sitting within a 30-minute ferry ride of a major city. Tiri Matangi, because of the experience there, is now the #1 tourist attraction on TripAdvisor in Auckland. And we've got another 3 islands ready to go to be part of the whole tourism perspective. So we can do this, and it is really Kiwi can do. So the real challenge is how we work together in using science, Mataranga Māori, community, great leadership. It is about what Roger said, it is about that movement. It's understanding respective roles, it's the coordination, it's being clear about the goal, and it's identifying the hidden traps and the perverse outcomes that we might have through something like our legislation on carbon. We love this country, and Kipling's words, the last, the loneliest, the loveliest, are probably our greatest advantage, but it's also one of our biggest risks, is how we protect it. This is a war. It is a war on rats, stoats, possums, and critters trying to get in here. And it's the heart of our brand. We can make New Zealand the Galapagos of the world. And when I look at Biodiversity 2025 in the direction statement, I think it's a great challenge that we want to throw down, because if we can believe predator-free 2050 and TB-free 2050 is possible, we can do this. Kia ora koutou katoa.